Welcome, everyone. Michael McCarthy with a blockchain course, and I'd like to welcome Jeff Tumpowsky, one of our favorite blockchain consultants. Welcome, Jeff.
Hey, Michael, how are you?
Good. How are you? So, Jeff, we have a huge challenge today, which is in our last module for class to take 10 minutes of your time to share with us your overall insights on what's gaining traction, what's working in blockchain, what are some of the big names, what are some of the current events that we should be aware of in blockchain from your viewpoint. So in the next 10 minutes, we would love to hear your insights.
Well, thanks. Yeah, so I'm hoping to complement some of the things that you guys are doing and at least give you some insights on some things that are happening behind the scenes, so to speak. But it's an exciting time still to be in blockchain, and I think that anybody that is involved with your course is ahead of the curve, right? So we still are, as many people are going to tell you, we're still in the first inning of, 9-inning game, and we're not, even though we're getting some hype out there, around Bitcoin and blockchain, the blockchain piece is still very much in its infancy. And based on that, I wanted to kind of take a step back, and I've talked a lot about different types of use cases historically and the excitement I have around blockchain and what it could do for different scenarios that are out there in business. And what I'd like to also do is kind of take a step back, but look at the underlying platforms for each of the blockchain. Also take a little deeper dive on some of these alliances and consortiums that are out there. And I think that's important to understand what's going on. It's because a blockchain needs a network. If you decide to open up your blockchain tomorrow, not really interesting unless other people are on it. And so that's why it's interesting to see what's going on with all these other blockchains. And then I'll go, I think there's a number of use cases I want to re-highlight based on the international flavor of the student body within the class. There are a number of different use cases that are really starting to get a lot of focus, and we'll go into those at the end. So, all right, jumping in. So I would say there's probably, from a platform perspective, there are probably 5 different versions of a platform. Obviously, Ethereum is probably one of the most well-known ones, and it is really, from a blockchain perspective, is the first one that puts smart contracts in. And so that to me is a really important piece. So if you want smart contracts, Ethereum is a really good place to start. Hyperledger, I also want to mention. Hyperledger, I think, is coming a long way as well. IBM is a huge backer. It's being sponsored by the Linux Foundation. If you're familiar with Linux, it's an open source community. It has developers adding to it and improving it every day, just like Linux. Okay, so as issues come out, people actually, out of their goodness of their heart, they're improving it. So there's Hyperledger. Hyperledger Fabric is something that's come out on top of Hyperledger, and I think that's an important piece. And then I would say there's 3 other ones that some of them have bits of Ethereum in it. But R3 Corda is another one. R3 is a financial services focused blockchain, and R3 is actually also, and this is why I want to mention platform, but also the alliances. So R3 is also an alliance. Okay, so it's an important piece there. And it's alliance, they call it the R3 Consortium. It's, again, focused on financial services, very focused on trying to solve a number of things around the financial services world, cross-border trading, things like that, very interesting to them. And then the other 2 that I feel are important to bring up are Ripple and Quorum. Ripple Labs is, again, financial services focused. They actually are a cryptocurrency as well on that. So we're not going to go deep on cryptocurrency, but what you'll see, and there's not every single company out there, but there's some companies have offered ICOs, plus they have cryptocurrencies. Ethereum uses Ether, so you have a dual currency that has to get exchanged, if you want to go into US dollars, if you want to go into something else, there's an exchange mechanism within that platform. But work that's done on that platform is typically paid in their cryptocurrency. So there's some interesting things there. Ethereum, if you are using them, when you create your own blockchain solution and application on Ethereum, you're not required to use you don't have to use Ether as the payment mechanism. You can create a smart contract and have it pay out in US dollars or other type of currency. When we're getting down to the alliances, I want to talk a little bit about the alliances, because I feel like it's very, very important to start talking a little about the alliances. I mentioned R3. R3, as I mentioned, they have something called, their platform is called Corda, and very interesting to go look at. There's not a built-in token, but it's actually very much a smart contract solution, has some very good interoperability, and they're supposed to be trying to interoperate between existing systems and the blockchain. So, again, looking at financial services, they're looking at different things that take long times to settle in typical cases, and they're trying to compress that time frame. Okay, so nothing like some background noise. Sorry about that. Working office. Working office. So the other ones that I want to bring up, Quorum is actually something that was developed on Ethereum by JP Morgan. And again, very focused on the financial services space. And they were trying to do a lot of things around different private transactions, things that were not on exchanges, but they wanted to create more value to that transaction. Things that may be private equity type transactions, things like that. That's what they were originally trying to get focused on. They're now doing some very cool things within JP Morgan, and now there's actually a platform that you can build on top of as well. So very, very cool. Alliances are actually popping up. Some are, like I mentioned, R3 I would consider an alliance, but there are others that are focused on training. So there's a blockchain alliance. It's blockchainalliance.org. They focus on industry and law enforcement around any blockchain type things that are going on within the US. And they're trying to make sure that there is a fair and equitable way to, if there happens to be a dispute, that there's ways that we can get that dealt with. Because in theory, we're not going to have a dispute, right? So, if you put together a smart contract in a smart way and everybody agrees to that contract, guess what? The outcomes that you planned on will happen if you meet these criteria. That's how the smart contract works. So hopefully there's going to be less interaction from that point of view. The other pieces I want to throw out were around some of the industry standards and protocols. Just like HTTPS and HTTP on the internet side, there's no standards today for any of these blockchains. So there actually needs to be a standards body that looks at the protocols. Protocols are a real problem these days because we really need to standardize. Once you're going to have, it's one thing having one blockchain, but once you start piecing them together, blockchain to blockchain, which is going to happen, especially in supply chain, is a huge use case. We're going to think about kind of plugging blockchains together. That requires standardization. And so without that, there's a number of things going on there. IBM's hugely involved with FDA and helping with healthcare around standardization. There really isn't, but I still think it's a Wild West. We don't have regulatory oversight. We also don't have standardization. The one thing you probably have covered, but I wanted to touch on, was private versus permission. Permission versus public entities. So public blockchain is like Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a public blockchain. Anybody can get on. You get on. If you have value, if you have a wallet of value that you can exchange value with another person on the blockchain, you can do that. in a permission, I'll call it a private blockchain, you have to be permissioned to be part of that blockchain. And that would be, potentially, if you think about any type of trading partners, you might be able to have more of a permission type blockchain where the rules are set up and you execute against those rules, and it's not anybody that can jump on. And there's some good benefits to that. I'm realizing I'm burning through my 10 minutes quite quickly, so I'm going to jump into what I consider is some of the cool things that I think you guys have been discussing, which is business models. I'm going to touch upon the ID space really quick. I think the ID and identity space is a huge opportunity. I think that blockchain identity is something that is going to be very interesting across borders, across many different situations. The second piece, I think, is cross-border payments. I'm seeing a number of companies that are popping up where you can exchange currencies with no fees. The one here in the Boston area is Circle. You could literally, via almost a text message, go back and forth with no fee at all. I could go trading US dollars. I can convert that to the value of any type of currency globally without a cost. That's a huge opportunity for a lot of different trading opportunities with doing cross payments. The last one I was going to just kind of finish up with is around another, the one that's near and dear to my heart, which is in the supply chain space. But the reason I'm bringing it up is that there's a number of folks that are doing things in the supply chain space now that are actually out in the marketplace. So my former company, Cisco, is doing some work with a broad base bit of their actual supply chain with all their chipsets and stuff. And that's actually going on the blockchain today. I say today, it's going live in the next couple of weeks. But that is an exciting piece of a change in the way that they do business with their suppliers. And there's a number of other ones. Bosch has a big consortium in Germany that is doing something similar, where their processors go in and they can bring, they can transact on the blockchain as you bring parts in to a final product for Bosch. I think that's real exciting times, and I'm excited that you guys are all going through this awesome class. Yeah, it's really very cool.
Jeff, thank you so much for your insights. You gave us a lot of interesting stuff. And again, we really appreciate your time, and we will be seeing you probably next semester to find out what's the latest, greatest thing in blockchain. So thank you.
Thank you, Michael, and good luck to everyone.